this is the conference that creates that map that we have today. We're still sitting with this map that was created in this conference in December. To more or less, there was a reason for why the African states in 1960s said, let's rather keep this map instead of creating more problems by trying to create a new map. And this conference, I mistakenly said last time it was called by Leopold, but Leopold was one of the persons to call it. I told you that the Congo was the personal property, quote unquote, of King Leopold of Belgium. In fact, his parliament weren't interested or weren't very convinced that of the necessity of having a territory, but he kept it in his own name, and he basically rented out this territory to what was called chartered companies. Companies, he gave them the right to administer, to trade, to run certain parts of the Congo. The Portuguese also. So the smaller European powers did this. The Portuguese did the same thing in Angola and in Mozambique. They allowed a company to basically be the government for a territory. So you can trade, you can make the laws, you can tax, you just pay us a fixed fee. And this led to the most enormous violence of all the colonial types. This was the most violent because the companies were just interested in profit level for themselves. Now, they had lots of problems. There was a lot ongoing resistance by the locals. The Portuguese, for instance, in Mozambique, the Portuguese, they're not able to settle, you know what, Mozambique until the 1920s. They're not able to. They take certain parts, they control certain parts in the south and so on, but in the north, the people give them a hard time. They make alliances with local chiefs and so on. The chiefs are in conflict with each other. Chiefs break off alliances with the Portuguese. The Portuguese only begin to call to do what they call effective occupation, where the Portuguese state itself comes in very late in the game. So what is important to recognize is the unevenness over time of the colonization and the establishment of the empire. So this date is important to remember, but it was at the time only a very formal arrangement. Much of the continent was not in fact occupied. It was just so the Europeans in fact made decisions when in fact they weren't even occupying everything. So they drew lines on the map, which was also their projection of what they want. Do you understand? They weren't even there at those posts. They were just so confident of their weapons and of their technology and of the capacity to project that this is going to be how it's going to look like. It's stunning in the arrogance of the time. Now, there were two areas which were not colonized, and that was Abyssinia. Okay, what is today Ethiopia. Okay, the Abyssinians in fact beat in a great victory. They beat the Italians who tried to occupy them in 1896. They beat them in a famous battle called the Battle of Adawa. Okay, that's a very famous battle. The Europeans had this fever to take territory. There was this, the Italians thought, but we don't have territory. Where's our territory? They're making deals, so they went for Ethiopia. They had also based on not just we want Ethiopia, based on trade and all sorts of longer term connections. But they were beaten at Adawa in 1896, a crucial battle. What they did next when they withdrew, they drew to the territory which became only independent in 1990. They withdrew to the territory which is Eritrea. And that's how Eritrea had a slightly different trajectory to Ethiopia. You understand, some of these conflicts have deep colonial roots. So the Italian army after Adawa, they established a little enclave. That's an important word to remember, because this is often how colonialism spread, with a little enclave, a little secure neighborhood for yourself, and then you break out of that over time. Okay, an enclave. You haven't. Now, the Italians then, still driven by this, not satisfied by having some influence over Eritrea, over the territory that becomes Eritrea. In 1911, they moved to occupy Libya. And in a very brutal occupation of Libya, in which they used air raids and they established camps for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Italians. There's a wonderful movie about this, about the resistance to the Italians. It's called Lion of the Desert. So if you want to see a film about African resistance, this Lion of the Desert against the Italian occupation, and it captures the brutality of the Italian occupation very interestingly, with footage of what happened. What's this movie called? Lion of the Desert. It's about a resistance fighter. We should draw up a list of movies about this resistance, and maybe you should watch Basil Davidson. He will have an episode on the scramble for Africa. We call this period from 1875 the scramble for Africa. You know, the scramble is like a rush. The rush for Africa from about the 1870s. Okay? I think you should watch it.